The following talk was given at the Insight Meditation Center in Redwood City, California. Please visit our website at audiodharma.org.
Nice to be back here Tuesday morning, this beautiful weather. So I had the idea this morning to say a few words about embodied practice. This idea of embodied awareness, working with the body. We talk a lot about mindfulness, and there's a way that the word mindfulness sort of implies something that we're doing in our heads, and maybe that's good. Maybe a lot of practice does happen with the mind, through the mind, but there's something about the body that if the body, in a way, if the body is not at the center of our practice, we're missing a huge chunk of what the Buddha taught. And then I was thinking about some of the very esteemed, wonderful teachers that I've known, masters, Zen masters or meditation masters. And one of the, even though they're all different in certain ways and from different cultures maybe and in different backgrounds, one of the things that it seems to me that they have in common is this sense of their practice permeating the body, their body. It's like, their whole being is expressed through the body in this very, it's a little hard to put into words, but sort of like an integrated, connected, beautiful way that it's. And I think about that when I notice for myself some disconnection to the body, some way of holding the body that I haven't been aware of, and then it comes into awareness, and I think, why am I doing that? Like a really common one for meditators is, especially if you have the idea that it's good to sit up straight, a really common one is to subtly or not so subtly raise the shoulders. And if you've ever been sitting for a day or a few days on a meditation retreat, often people's shoulders really ache, to the point that the teacher sometimes has people go around and massage people, at least in Zen, they're giving people massages. And then at some point, so early in my practice, I would be on these meditation retreats, and after my shoulders would just be so tight. And then at some point I thought, why are the shoulders tight? Physiologically, anatomically, I don't need to tighten the shoulders in order to be balanced, to be upright, to be straight. And there was this sort of unconscious tension that I wasn't aware of, that so it was a doing that I was applying. And once I realized that, I could begin to bring it into awareness, and it would just be part of the practice where every 30 seconds, every minute, I don't know what exactly the timing was, but I would notice the body and being in the body, and then check the shoulders. And sure enough, often the shoulders would be coming up a little bit. So just release them, relax them. And I noticed that almost as soon as I moved awareness away from the shoulders, they would come right back up. Then they come right back over, very kindly, very gently. So over time, I taught myself that I didn't need to raise my shoulders in order to keep my head up. I didn't need to raise my shoulders to keep upright. It was a sort of extra tension that could be let go of. I mean, so that's one example. But I think a lot of us, a lot of the time, go through our life in some way being disembodied, in some way being very much in the control tower, up in the world of ideas, world of abstraction, and we're sort of not connected in some way. And then through meditation practice, there's this possibility to reconnect, reestablish that connection. So we start to explore this mind-body connection a little bit more. The other place that it's very interesting to notice in meditation is how the body reacts to our thoughts, our feelings, our perceptions, our concerns, our images that we have in the mind. It's just one of the basic insights that we start to have in meditation, that I can be sitting and basically daydreaming, thinking about something. And if it's something stressful that I'm thinking about, the body starts to respond, or can start to respond, as if that's happening. So if I'm reliving a stressful conversation, my body may leap into action as if the body is in that conversation in this moment. So the heart rate may increase. If it's a moment where I was embarrassed, or I was ashamed, or I was, some difficulty, I can sometimes feel my face, starting to blush. It's just an idea. It's just a memory. It's just images in the mind, but the body leaps into action. And this is a very valuable thing to notice and to see in meditation. Rather than saying, this is bad, I'm a bad meditator, I should just come back to the breath, or come back to some physical sensation that's happening right now. To notice this cause and effect, to notice this intimate connection between the mind and the body, may be much more valuable for our practice and much more valuable for our life than a sort of robotic or mechanistic, no, I have to come back to the breath, I have to come back to... So, wow, that's amazing. I was dreaming about a meal that I'm really looking forward to, or I really enjoyed, and my mouth started to water. Wow. Or having some kind of, fantasy, whether it's a sexual fantasy or just a sort of some pleasure in the body. It's like, oh, wow, I can imagine getting that massage and the shoulders relax, something releases, something relaxes. And so this mind-body connection is so important to see over and over again in the practice. And then we can start to get some insight into the connection between stress, between difficult emotions, maybe between the connection between what some people call toxic emotions and the effect on the body. It's so when we've seen this so clearly in meditation, it's like we start to view our body in a different way. And I don't know if anyone has heard of this book or read this book, When the Body Says No. This is a book by a medical doctor, Gabor Mate, who's sort of popular, at least he's popular in some circles that I'm in, and he's an MD. He worked for many years in a part of Vancouver that is probably the most concentrated area of drug addiction in North America. So he has a lot of deep insight into addiction and the process of addiction. And his famous book is called, I think it's called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, which is about addiction. And the subtitle is I think it's from alcohol to workaholism and everything in between. And so he's talking about the phenomenon of the pattern of addiction in all its manifestations. But the book that he wrote before that book on addiction was called When the Body Says No. And it is about the connection between our emotional life and just our sort of psychological patterns and mental patterns, which often maybe we learn in childhood. How the connection between that and adult physical illness and mental illness. So it's just sort of an interesting connection that he draws, and it's sort of like when we start to see this mind-body connection really clearly, that when I think in certain ways, it affects the body, and then something about meditation practice and mindfulness practice in terms of re-embodying, reconnecting to the body. And so I wanted to talk briefly about sort of two, I don't know how much of this we'll get through, but this might be a two-part talk, I'm not sure. But two ways of working with the body in meditation, or two ways of understanding mindfulness of the body. One way, which is the way that I think we usually talk about this, is using the body to cultivate mindfulness and develop mindfulness, and learning how to establish a whole body awareness, and using the signals from the body, the messages of the body, to develop and deepen our awareness, our mindfulness. So that's one big area of mindfulness of the body. And then the second area, which is a little bit more the word that's coming up is ancient. I don't know if that's really accurate, but it's a more classical way of thinking of mindfulness of the body, is maybe not so much using the body as a place to develop mindfulness, but using mindfulness as a way of seeing into the nature of the body. So it's saying the body is maybe one of the most valuable places that we can apply our awareness to, apply our mindfulness to, and see something very deeply into the nature of the body. And in a way that opens things up for us and releases something for us. So I think these are very connected, but could you sort of get a sense of that they're somewhat different? So just to review a little bit about the way I'm using the word mindfulness is very close to the word awareness. Just the kind of basic awareness that is open, that's receptive, that is spacious. And there are many different ways of being aware, and many different ways of applying awareness. And awareness can also be very focused and very we can develop awareness that's very focused, almost like a laser beam. That's very small, very the word that's coming up is tight. Although it can feel tight. It doesn't have to be tight, but that's one form of awareness. In terms of working with the body, and in terms of working with the Buddha's instructions on mindfulness of the body, it seems to be most helpful to think about mindfulness as this wider field, this spacious, open, receptive. And this goes very well with a kind of whole body awareness, that in a way can be our anchor or touchstone. If we develop a very narrow form of awareness, that can be interesting and helpful, but it tends not to lend itself to an integrated practice off the cushion. So if I'm really with my breath in this very small, focused way, it's not so sustainable when I'm walking around, when I'm interacting with other people, when I'm driving. There's that old story about, people at meditation center who were very intensively practicing mindfulness of breathing, and then, answering the phone and, saying, "Hello, Zen Center," really with the breath, really with each breath, and, not that useful of a practice in terms of our daily life. Whereas there's something about, and this is something that might be helpful, might be useful to just play with and explore. When we sit, we have this intention of having a very spacious whole body awareness that's open, that's just having this sense of the body in space. That is something that maybe we're able to carry into walking. We're able to carry it into conversations where we're talking to someone and we have some sense of what we're doing with the body, how the body is, how the body feels. And we can still be in the world of ideas and we can still be in conversation. So something about developing a whole body awareness seems to be very helpful for this kind of embodied practice. And then the very basic instruction is bringing the mind into the body, letting the mind, some teachers talk about letting the mind rest on the body. The beautiful thing about this practice is it doesn't matter how the body is right now, how the body happens to be. When our intention is to simply rest the mind in the body, place the mind in the body, we begin to notice how the body is. It doesn't need to be any particular way. And we have everything we need to practice wherever we are. Our body is with us. The body is in the present moment. And just to tune in and connect to the body is to have the idea that this is valuable, this is useful, this is helpful. And what we may start to notice is areas of the body that have tension, that have some kind of contraction and some kind of tightness. This in itself is very, very useful to see. Because of this intimate connection between the body and the mind, as we've already talked about. Very often, I don't want to say always, but seems to be the case for myself, and you can see what's true for you. But I'll say very often, some physical tension or physical contraction or physical holding is a manifestation of some form of mental tension, mental tightness, mental contraction. And there's this very, very close correspondence. So it turns out that it's much easier to see clinging or tightness or tension in the body than it is in the mind. So there's a way that the more connected that we come to the body and the more comfortable we are to be in our body, to just notice how the body feels, where there's some sense of struggle in the body, it's actually it can be a way in to a sort of a holding in the mind and a tightness in the mind. And the way of practicing with that is not complicated at all. It's just, it can be as simple as noticing, coming to a whole body awareness and noticing where is there some sense of struggle in the body. Where is there some sense of tightness, some holding that feels like, oh, this is extra. There's something here that's a little bit painful, a little bit unpleasant, a little bit extra. And just letting our awareness be with that. Just without needing to figure it out, without needing to fix it, to change it, to just stay with it. So I talked about this tightness that can often happen in the shoulders for meditators. And sometimes it's enough to just bring the awareness to the discomfort or the tightness, and something will release on its own. And sometimes it won't release. Sometimes it will just be there. It will stay there. People have frozen shoulders. People have all kinds of different, we have all kinds of different physical things that we notice in practice. One of the most common things is a kind of a holding in the belly, a tightness in the belly. And many people have observed that young children, babies especially, have this wonderful soft belly breathing. It's just the most natural thing in the world for them to have this incredible softness here at the belly. And it's, in a way, that's the center of the body, the center of gravity of the body. And there's a way that young children sort of can move through it. When they fall, it's my daughter was at the playground and she's 5 years old, so I think she's a little bit on the developmentally, she's starting to get lots of ideas and lots of thinking and lots of, sense of her place in the family, in the classroom, in the world. And I imagine that as she grows, that will correspond to more and more tightness and tension in the body. I hope not, but that just seems to be the way we develop. But as young children, there's this incredible softness. And anyway, so she's 5 years old, so she's still really young in that way, but she was at the playground at the top of one of those fire pole kind of things. And it was one of these very hot days that we've been having recently and sunny, and she got onto it, and then she realized it was really hot. It was this metal sort of fire pole thing. It was really hot. She let go of it, and all the way down. And it's one of those, for parents, it's like, my heart went into my stomach, and my stomach went up to my feet, or so, oh, geez. And she was a little stunned, I think just the shock of falling. There was like this moment where she was trying to decide, am I hurt? Should I cry? What happened? Is this good? Is this bad? And just kind of moment of, and then, we know as parents how we react can make a big, if we are like, oh my God, and get really upset and really panic, the child will take that cue. And if we're like, oh, you had a big fall, but you're fine, and and if we offer that sort of suggestion, sometimes there's a different that can help to create a different perception of time. So anyway, we. I think we were somewhere in the middle, but she basically was fine. And what I realized is that her body maybe was so soft and so relaxed, and she wasn't really expecting that she didn't even tense up. And she fell in a way that basically she was totally fine. And she had a little pain in her knee, but just kind of brushed it off. And then, like the way cats kind of can fall and, without this tension. It turns out the tension itself can create a lot of the difficulty. So in this mode of practice, in this mode of embodied practice, we can just learn to tune in to any sense of tension, any sense of struggle, and have the understanding that this is where our practice is right now, that this is really valuable to be with. This physical tension, there's a message there. There's it's a signal. It's a kind of data for us about our state of mind, and to just be with it with a lot of kindness, a lot of compassion, and maybe in some way, if we're able to be so in tune with the body that we're noticing symptoms, problems, tensions, it doesn't get to a point where it's actually really, into the form of maybe in some ways there's a way of catching an illness. I know for myself, if in my meditation I start to notice there's a little bit more fatigue than usual, or a little bit of a scratchiness in the throat, I can do something that maybe will forestall or prevent a cold from coming, or some kind of, if everyone in my family's sick, and I start to really, can I catch this so early? So anyway, this is one way of practicing in the body, being in the body. And something very interesting about tension. I mean, so I think I've said this before here, and just to one of the probably most valuable pieces of advice that one of my teachers said to me was that any sign of tension or struggle in the body is a sign that something is not being open to, something is not being accepted. And it's just one of these beautiful pointers that if you think of one of our primary intentions in mindfulness practice is to meet experience with a mind that accepts, that is open, that receives, that is not in conflict with what's happening. So if I'm sitting and there's a lot of tension or a little bit of tension somewhere, maybe it's a sign that something's not being seen, or something's being resisted that I'm not even aware of. Some element in my experience. So it's just as this pointer, this beautiful pointer. So, the body, some people understand the body as being a repository of all the experience that we've ever had in our life. And this is something to just, that could be useful in exploring, that there are ways that ideas and images and memories and experience experiences get stored in the body. And I know for myself on meditation retreats or in long periods of sitting, it's very interesting how some memory will come up, or some image of someone who I haven't thought about in years, or I haven't thought about that encounter in years. And not always, but sometimes I can connect it to something that was softened or that was released in the body. And it's just one of these interesting connections. So this can come up for us in meditation in a delightful way, and you can imagine that it can also come up in less than delightful ways. You know, the most common form of this is trauma and traumatic experiences and memories also maybe get sort of deposited or lodged in the body or buried in the body or frozen in the body in some way. And so just to be very sensitive and very respectful of the body as this I don't know what the word is, but storehouse doesn't quite approach it, but the body as almost this sacred vessel, this sacred vessel of our experience. And that the process of meditation is in a way this thawing out of, sometimes I think about if our awareness, our mindfulness is sort of like a ray of sunshine, a ray of heat that is in a way melting or thawing out what's frozen, what's been frozen. To be very, just sensitive and respectful for what may be there, what may be there, and the painful. I think just being a human being, and being a human being who has experienced loss and tragedy and suffering and of course all the positive, all the beautiful emotions as well. But it's all in there somewhere. And if there's a way that experiences get imprinted on us, that we may find in this path of embodiment, in this path to being more connected, more whole, to really healing in some way, it's a path that maybe runs through those experiences. And there's a way that, not that we necessarily need to re-experience everything we've ever experienced, but if something has gotten stuck or frozen, sometimes it needs to be brought into awareness in order to be released. And there's something in that process. I remember the first time that I returned to my childhood home after having been away for maybe 10 or 15 years. And I kind of thought, oh, well, this would be interesting. My family had long since moved away, and I hadn't gone to that city in years and years. And when I went back there, and when I was approaching the neighborhood that I grew up in, what I can describe in retrospect was something like a panic attack. It was something like this, of like this very visceral, that it wasn't connected to a specific, it might have been, if I thought about it, maybe because my father had passed away during that time and all these, but it wasn't even like there was one memory or one thing, but it was just like a flood of emotions. And it was like something that, wow, that hadn't been let in years, but was clearly still in the body somehow. And this was before I think I had done some meditation practice, but not a lot. And I just didn't really know how to be with it or what it connected to, but just to sort of stop and just be with it and experience it was sort of enough to let it. It was like a storm, and then it sort of passed through, and then I thought to myself, oh wow, is that why I haven't gone back in 10 years or 15 years? Because I knew there was sort of something there that. And it wasn't in the place, it wasn't in the city or in the neighborhood. It was in me, and it was in me in all these other places that I've gone to. But it wasn't. I wasn't connected to it. I wasn't experiencing it. But maybe there were ways that it was affecting me that I wasn't aware of. And when I could sort of experience it and be with it and sort of connect to the place and the physicality of all of it, and then it just sort of passed through, and I never again had a problem with going there or being with the people from that time. It was just so anyway, it's I offer that as just a way of sharing, and that if something comes up in meditation or in this embodied practice that feels difficult, that feels challenging, make a lot of space around it. Be really respectful of it, and it's not necessarily, or most likely it's not a mistake. It's not there's something there that wants to pass through, and to bring this really kind, compassionate awareness to it is one of the most helpful things. And because I think often we're disembodied because there's something that's in the body that we have some intuition that is going to be painful to be with. I was talking to my mom about, not so much about meditation, but about something a little bit similar about fasting. We were talking about this practice of fasting and how people can do fasting for health, but somehow my mom got the idea or the understanding that when we fast or do these long fasts, we start to experience all these things from our past. And she said, I'm not interested in reliving that or experiencing that. And was sort of very clear that she didn't want to go on a fishing expedition. So we have so many different ways of relating to the body and everything that's stored there, and so just offering this as that maybe one of the most valuable aspects of mindfulness practice is finding some way to come more and more into the physicality, our physical experience, and letting it teach us what it needs, or what's needed to be open to, or to be released, or to be let go of. But having a lot of care around it, a lot of respect around it, not putting shoulds, on it. I think is the most helpful approach to it. So maybe that's enough for today, and then next week, because I'll be back next week, and talk a little bit about using the body for insight and using what are some of the traditional ways that the Buddha offered to sort of ways of looking at the body, of seeing the body, of applying mindfulness and awareness to the body that help us to let go, that help us to see the nature of the body, and in that seeing, release something. So, and there's some classical practices that are designed for that, designed to help us sort of unhook from this identification with the body, unhook from this very strong and very sort of human way that we attach to the body and attach to other people's bodies. And so that's a little preview of next week. And, so does anybody have questions? We have a few minutes. Any thoughts on this? Embodied practice, embodied awareness. Yeah.
Sorry, I came in late, so I don't know if you had talked about this, and this is kind of a selfish question, but I just came back from a silent retreat, and during the retreat, I experienced a really intense physical thing that went on for pretty much the whole retreat. Of just, the only way I can describe it is like this, like on the weather maps, you see the tropical depression swirling that's going to become a Cat 5 hurricane when it hits whatever. And it was here. It was like above my stomach and below my ribs. And every invitation I offered it to release, to give it loving kindness, it refused. And I couldn't make it like budge, and I literally did not sleep one entire night. Wow. And it was intense. And I'm still coming off of that, trying to see what kind of sorts out. But I don't know if you have any recommendations, if you've have experienced that. And I appreciate what you said about, giving it as much space and being very kind. But it's really hard, and I don't know if there's any additional. And I'm sorry if you had already touched on this.
Thank you. This is sort of exactly what what I've been talking about. That through this simple mindfulness practice, simple awareness practice, and sort of connecting to the body, often things get activated, and it can take many different forms. But that sort of storm of energy or of unease. Okay, yeah. It's one of, in a way, it's a great sign, because it means that it's great, because it's like something's happening, something's moving, something is finally getting the attention that it wants, that it needs. And it's like, the way I think about it is, it's not so much that the meditation stirred it up, but that you're finally, and this is kind of just, this is just a story about it. I don't know if it's really true, but it's like, that you're finally opening to what's actually been there, but it's been out of awareness. And often, what I know for myself, what's out of awareness, what's on the wings, tends to control me in ways that, we don't see, but it's there, and it's actually, so when we start to consciously connect, to start to open to it, and then it's little, and then it grows, and then it grows, and then it grows, and it grows. It's not that the meditation is doing it, but we're opening more and more and more to what's really been there in some form or another. So in a way, it's wonderful in that sense that you've opened to it, you've connected to it, and then truly the most difficult thing is to meet it with genuine acceptance. Often, if something is difficult, we really want it to go away. Whether it's a difficult physical pain, whether it's a difficult emotional pain, whether if it's a difficult thought pattern, it's painful, it's unpleasant, it brings unease. We don't like it, and we don't want it, and of course we don't want it. But the dynamic of not wanting it to be there, however subtle that is, tends to be what locks it in place. And there's this, so the practice tends to it comes back to of finding more and more ways to be with it and truly accept it. And often what I notice for myself, and I think many other people can relate to this, is we have some idea about that, but we're accepting it in order for it to go away. Like you said, it hasn't budged. And we want it to budge. We want it to loosen up and move and get out of here, and so something about giving up, when we can finally give up, when we can finally give up that any need or any hope for it to budge, in that giving up, in that letting go. One of my teachers framed it in a sense that for him, he said, I want to see, am I truly accepting this? You can say this storm thing, or am I somehow relating to it in a way that hopes that it will just move along? Yeah, metta, peace and love, and is it still there? Is it still there? And so the way he tested it for himself is just the reflection came to him. If this unease, this physical and energetic and emotional unease is there for the rest of my life, it is okay. So he dropped that in. If this is there for the rest of my life, is this okay? And then very quickly the word was, no. No, it's not okay. Good, fine. To see that, and this is a way of highlighting the resistance that, this is the very understandable resistance that's there. And then so just to be aware of that and be like, no, on some level of my being, that this is here is not okay. I don't want it. I don't like it. I'm resisting it. And then the practice is fine, great. You're seeing that. You're aware enough to see this difficulty, which is great. And now you're aware on this other level to see the resistance to it, to see this very understandable resistance to it. And then what is it like to be with that resistance? Can I bring some sense of ease, some sense of kindness to the resistance, to the way, this dynamic that's locking it in? Great. Am I okay with, that this is there. This is what's happening right now. This pain is there. This resistance to the pain is there. And to be with the whole thing. Hold the whole thing in spaciousness. Hold the whole thing. And so it's like you kind of keep going more and more space around it to just hold. And maybe around that resistance, there's some ideas of, whatever it is, I should be able to let this go, or why can't I let this go, or I always do this, or blah, 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 or whatever it is.
Or I'm in big trouble if I can't let this go.
I'm in big trouble if I can't let this go.
I gotta let this go because it's, I'm in trouble.
I can't, I'm in trouble. Yeah. I'm in big trouble. Can I be with that, with kindness? Can I be with those ideas? I mean, it's so interesting that all of these layers and all of these ideas that we have, we can start to just bring them into awareness, and that's the practice. And there's a certain magic and beauty to just letting this in, layer by layer. You're letting it in. And we can have these great insights into whether it's some idea of, like you said, I can't live with this. That's one idea. Another idea, which sometimes people discover around chronic pain or chronic physical pain, is I have to live with this. And there's something about this pain that's become fused in my mind with life itself. And letting go of the pain is almost like a death, or kind of, this is my life, this is my identity, this is this pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. And sort of to let go of it would be to die in a certain way, because it's so connected to my identity, and it's so connected. Sometimes we carry grief, and to let go of the grief is so connected with letting go of that loved one. We hold on to the grief. We hold on. So it's just, it's just seeing all this, and just allowing. But it's great practice, and it's not probably pleasant practice, but that it's probably been there already, and that you're seeing it, you're letting it in, is really good. And it's working on you in ways that we're not even aware of. So, I would just to say, hold it in as much spaciousness as you can, and keep opening up to whatever is, wherever there's a resistance, wherever there's some sense of that it's something is not okay or shouldn't be there, or that's really worth looking at and being with. And that's the transformative power is in that seeing of the resistance. Okay, so thank you. Yeah.
While you were, is this on? Yes. Well, while you were talking, this image sort of came to me of the breath actually coming in almost like a nurturing food, so that the breath becomes actually part of the body, almost like something that you digest and gets incorporated into the body. And I'm not quite sure where that image is going, but I just thought I'd mention that was this image that came to my mind, almost air as food that you take in.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. I think we didn't talk so much about the breath, but the breath is like this nexus between the body and the mind. And it's a function that's happening all the time, but we can also bring awareness to it, and it's can be incredibly nurturing, incredibly soothing to breathe with something, to breathe with difficulty. And, with every breath, just releasing, with every exhalation. Every in-breath can be energizing and nourishing, in every exhalation, just releasing, just letting go. Next week I'll talk about, there's a way of, there's a lot of ways of doing this, but one way of using the breath for insight is to, as this connection to our mortality, actually, and that's one of the classical Buddhist ways of, is like reflecting on how the breath sustains life, and this breath could be my last. And what is that? And and having it sort of, that's a different way of working with the breath for insight. But the breath is so powerful; it can be such a great ally into just soothing the system. It's like that that discharge that we can have with just that. And breathing with difficulty and unease can be very helpful. So okay, well, thank you very much. Nice to see you. I wish you a good week of practice.